Dealing with grief and adversity has almost become the new normal during COVID-19. Perhaps we can take a leaf out of the book by Annemarie Conolly, Absorbing Too Much of the Atmosphere when it comes to how we cope with change. Don't go away, we will be right back. If you're just joining us, welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. I'm your host, Brigitte Limbanda from Cape Town in South Africa. The stream is made possible by StreamYard. In today's show, we talk to Annemarie Conolly about her book, Absorbing Too Much of the Atmosphere. Annemarie is, like most of us, just an ordinary person going through her daily life. She lives in a small town close to the southernmost tip of Africa, and I'm in Cape Town in South Africa, by the way. Yet her life has been filled with extraordinary challenges, just like most other ordinary people. What she's done, however, is take that life and expose it to a world as she relates how ordinary people can accomplish remarkable things in dire circumstances. She deals with heartbreak and tragedy with a great sense of humor and common sense, and never allows her circumstances to get her down. Her book is both revealing of her life as a wife and mother of two boys and of what the human spirit can accomplish if we never give up. And so let's not waste any more time. Let's invite Annemarie to the show and learn more about her story. Annemarie, hi, welcome to the Writers' Corner live show. Great to have you today.
Hello, Brigitte. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
An absolute pleasure. I'm intrigued by your book and the title of your book. How did you come up with that title?
Well, it's not, I can't take credit for it, unfortunately. Um, if you read the book, you will have to see what it means, because I don't want to actually give too much away, but it was something my son said, my son who is a schizophrenic. And I thought that was very apt. And it was the perfect title for the book, because everything that happened with my journey with him was actually, it just made sense. That just gave the perfect title, because nothing made sense that happened with me and him, and yet it made sense to use that title, because that's something he said, and he said very strange things, and he has said very strange things over the years. So that was just one of the things.
And so, a question I like to ask many people is, we've all got a story in us, a story to tell. We all have a journey. There's not a single person who doesn't have a story. Um, but not everyone gets to the point where they feel that they would want to share that story with the rest of the world. What is it that propelled you to want to become an author? Are you an accidental author? Did you decide that you want to share the story? Why did you want to share your story?
it it came about accidentally again. I have been thinking about it over the years since my husband died. I thought once I should write a blog, and I found a space on the internet, and I started a blog, and I started writing a few things down, and then something happened and I left it. And it was about 2 years later, I thought I should actually most probably add to that. And I couldn't find the location again. I didn't know what happened to it. So I just left it. I thought, oh, no, don't worry. And then I met a gentleman, and he asked me about my son and his situation and condition, because my son is a schizophrenic. And I told him a few things, and he was absolutely flabbergasted. His mouth was hanging open. He said, "It's unbelievable. You should write these things down." And I thought, okay, maybe I could. And I just, the very next day after I spoke to him, I started writing. And that was a year ago, and well, a bit longer than a year ago. It was in June last year. And I started writing just off the cuff. I didn't really know what to say. I just started writing. And it just started to flow. And luckily, over the years, I've kept a few notes. Some things happened years ago. Some things happened recently in the last 3 or 4 years. But many of the things, I just had a few notes here and there. I had documentation in my cupboard from things that happened. And when I wasn't sure of a date, I just sort of looked it up, and yes, and that's how it started. And I just started writing, and it started flowing, and it just all came out.
That is amazing because we all have a journey, we all write notes. How did you put it together to form a book? Did you get some professional advice? Um, or did you put it together by yourself? What was your talk a little bit about your journey? Because there's so many people like yourself, ordinary people with stories. We all have a journey. Um, how did you go about putting your book together?
I certainly didn't have professional help. It just came out off the cuff. I just wrote it. I sat down and literally I started, and I thought, okay, I should most probably, if I want to write about Andrew Paul, my son, I should start when he was a child, because everybody always asked me, how did you know? What was wrong? How did you notice there was something different about him? And I thought, okay, I'll start at the beginning. And I started from the time he was born, and I started writing, and I was just telling a story, and it just sort of flowed. I didn't get any help from anybody. Um, and it's followed chronologically, obviously. And I started writing about when he was little, and then he was growing up, and then he got a bit older, and other things happened in between, and he got a brother, and it just sort of it flowed out of me. I can't explain it. It was very easy to write it, actually. And as you say, everybody's got a story, everybody's got a journey, every single person has a journey. And but to be able to say, well, yes, now I'm going to sit down and write it down. Of course, in the past, when my husband was still alive and I had to run a business, I didn't have time to do this. I would have never been able to do it then. But in the last couple of years, things have settled down. I've become more quiet. I don't have all these people around me. My son is in a home. My husband died. The family that was giving me upheaval, they're all gone. And yes, so I had time in my hands, so I could do it. And I literally just sat down and started writing it. And things just started happening. And of course, I'm a great reader. I've been reading all my life. I love reading. And I think that helps to get things out.
That is amazing. So tell us a little bit about your son and how your parenting was different with him.
Well, in the beginning, there wasn't anything different. I think when he was a little kid, he was just a little boy. He was a sweet little kid. He grew up, and at some stage, somebody told us that he thought he looked like he was hyperactive. He was in the soccer team, and he was looking around and minding his own, doing his own thing, and didn't listen to the coach. And this gentleman came up to us and said, your son looks like he's hyperactive because he doesn't listen to the coach. And we watched him for a few weeks, and we had to admit, yes, it's true. He doesn't really, he's not listening. He's standing there daydreaming. And I took him to a psychiatrist. He was about 10 years old at the time. And the psychiatrist diagnosed him as having hyperactive, being hyperactive, calling it ADD or ADHD as they call it nowadays, attention deficit hyper disorder or something like that. And put him on Ritalin, and gave him Ritalin for a year. I didn't want him to become too addicted to it, actually. And he grew up, and he was fine. But I know he abused. Well, he used to smoke from an early age. I think he smoked from an early age. Not that I knew when he actually started. We didn't smoke at the time, so it was quite strange. And I know when he was a teenager, he started smoking cannabis, and he also denied it. But I knew he did it, even though I knew nothing about drugs or recreational drugs, even cannabis. The signs were there. The dilated pupils, the giggles, the munchies, and all those things. People used to tell me that's what cannabis does. And then, as he was in high school, he didn't want to go to school anymore, and I really had to plead with him to ask him, please, just finish your matric. Eventually finished matric. How, I don't know, because he never studied. But he's clever. He's very intelligent. And it was only later, when after he left school and he didn't know what to do, we couldn't get him to have a job, and he didn't have a job, and he was filling around. And then he joined the gym, and okay, that went fine for a while. And then he started to study as a personal trainer. So he did that with distant learning through Cape Teachers Academy. And he worked in a gym, and things were going all right. But that's the time when he started acting out. He used to shout at the top of his voice, leave me alone, go away, I don't want to hear you, I don't want to listen to you. And we didn't know what that was. When I asked him about it, he said, oh, the voices in his head told him to do stupid things. But still, it didn't really click. I didn't really know what that meant. Yes, so it was, and that's how it started, really, when we became strange and did stupid things. And then the psychosis came, and the delusions, and the hallucinations, and everything else.
So it was a progressive. It was a progressive disease. You didn't pick it up too much when he was younger. It was mainly from his teenage years onwards when it became more of a challenge in your life.
Yes, definitely. As a child, we thought he was a dreamer. We have dreamers in our family, people who seem to be in a different world all the time, but they got on with their lives, and they get on with their lives. They've got jobs, they've got families, they're fine. So we just put it down to him being a dreamer. But until he started acting out, especially with the voices, we didn't really think much about it. And even then, I didn't do anything about it. And there was actually a serious situation where he attacked my husband, and he nearly strangled him. And if you could picture the scene, my husband was 6'6". He was an extremely large man. My son is 6'3". He's also large, but he pinned his dad down, and he thought he was going to strangle him. And that's when I realized, gosh, now I have to do something about this immediately, before he does something else to somebody else. And that's when I had him admitted to hospital against his wishes, of course, involuntary. And they admitted him at Lentegeur, which is a psychiatric hospital in Cape Town, in Mitchell's Plain. And there they diagnosed him as having paranoid schizophrenia.
Wow, that was a long journey to finding a diagnosis. And I think that is probably the difficult part with, when you have parenting issues, is not having a diagnosis, because it's very difficult to deal with what you've got if you don't know what you're dealing with, to start off with. So how much of that do you put into your book?
Essentially, I think 3/4 of the book is about him and my journey with him, because I mean that's just one tiny section of it. I deal with the things he did and does and used to do before before diagnosis, after diagnosis, when he was supposed to be on medication, he wouldn't take his medication. He did absolutely shocking things. Well, shocking to me. He ran away from home. He became a hobo for a week. I didn't know where he was or what he was doing. He lived on the streets of Cape Town. Of course, I was extremely worried about him. I didn't know where he was. He he ended up in jail at some stage. So there are a lot of stories that I could tell from, just what he did, and before his medication was actually stabilized, which only happened recently. I mean, he was diagnosed in 2006, a month short of his 22nd birthday, and he is now 35 years old and 36 years old. And only now, in the last year, I can really say that he's got insight into his problem. He doesn't fight it anymore. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't actually seem to be so against it, where he just refuses to take medication. He takes it quite willingly now.
What was the most challenging part of the book for you to write about? Because when you're writing a book and you're sharing your story, it makes you vulnerable. What was? Is there a moment in the book that you write about that you sort of think, shouldn't I have included that bit? That bit.
There are many such bits. I can't actually pinpoint one or two or three. Everything seems to be over the top. Things that happen to me, when people hear about it, they say, "What? But how? Why? What? How did you cope?
Give
What
us
did
give
you
us one example, Annemarie. Can you give us one example?
do?" Well, I also write. Okay, one thing that Andrew Paul did. He used to just wander. He wanders around the streets. Okay, so he gets into trouble. So one night, we didn't come home. For 3 days, he didn't come home. I phoned the police. I asked them, "Have you seen him perhaps wandering around town?" So I had to go into the police station. I give him his ID document, and the policeman says to me, "Oh, but he's here. He's in the cells. We have him here." I thought, what? It was actually his birthday. It was the 5th of June, 2002, or somewhere around there. And he was in the cells because he'd been caught in town smoking cannabis, or having some in his possession. So they locked him up for 2 days, and he wasn't allowed to phone me. So, as a mother, you go crazy. You don't know where he is, what he's doing, what he's up to. I know he's up to no good. And then, of course, I had to go to jail on a Monday morning, to court on a Monday morning, and go and bail him out, after I found him guilty of possession of cannabis, and I had to pay a fine and get him out. And his friend, his accomplice, his crony who was with him, was actually let off the hook. But he came to our house. And while I was in court, he spoke to my husband, and he said to my husband, "Please, you must pay the fine. You mustn't let him go to jail, because they will send him to Caledon prison, a prison about 75 kilometers from us. And there he would be in a cell with 40 other people." He said, "And Andrew Paul is not streetwise. He doesn't know how to handle himself. He's very naive, actually. And he will get killed in jail. So don't please just pay his fine and don't let him go to jail." And that was sort of, an eye-opening moment. And of course, we paid the fine. And that is one instance. I had the police at my house at least once, twice a week, where they came to take away people that would just gather around him. He used to pick up homeless people and bring them home. And they used to sleep with him in his room and on the floor, and steal all his stuff. Yeah, it's everything is just incredulous, actually.
That is a lot. Just one story, right there is a lot to deal with. As a mom, you almost want to pull your hair out. Um, how did you survive all of this and get to tell the story?
I never thought about it as at the time when it was happening. I didn't actually go sit down and think, "Now, why is this happening to me?" I might as well have asked, why isn't it? It's the luck of the draw. That's what you have, and that's what you get. And I just dealt with it. Every day I had to go to work. I had to earn a living. We had a business. I had to earn a living and still deal with Andrew Paul, mostly without my husband's knowledge, because I didn't want him to get into a confrontation or a fight, because my husband I don't think men have the empathy that women have, or mothers have, at least. He didn't have
I
time for
think
it.
that I think their coping mechanism is different, and that's why we give birth to them, right?
Yes, that's right. So I had to cope, and I never questioned it. I don't know what made me get up every day. I suppose I just have that kind of
I think it
personality that
goes through on
never.
autopilot, isn't it? I don't think is I think as a mom, you don't have the luxury of thinking about things.
No,
You are you are the CEO of the ship, and you literally just you don't get to get off the boat. At no point do you get to jump the ship. You have to steer that ship come hell or high waters. And I
mm,
think you don't really give consideration to the murky waters or whatever's happening out there. You just need to know that whatever happens, you have to keep this boat afloat. It cannot flip.
yes.
So I think that's
It's
why you kind of
difficult. Yeah,
deal with
you
all the
just
little
cope.
details. Yeah.
Yeah, you get up every day, you go about your business, and I know what will come today, because I have to make sure Andrew Paul takes his medicine and he gets his pills, and if I have to take him to the hospital or the clinic to go and fetch it, if I leave him, he will never end up at the clinic. He will just wander around the streets and get waylaid somewhere, and he won't get to the clinic. So I had to physically take him there, get his pills. Every day was just a battle, but it never I never thought of it. I never thought of, why is my life like this? I didn't ever think about it. It just happened. I just dealt with it every day, every single day, and did what I had to do. And more I can't say. I don't know how I did it. This is just how it happened.
Your book, did you write it with an audience in mind?
Yes, I did. I wanted, when I started writing it, um, because the gentleman that told me to write it down, he said to me, "You should write it down, because I'm sure people would want to know about it." And I've
Mm.
had plenty of people over the years who ask me about Andrew Paul and what is schizophrenia. Most people don't know what it is. And I thought, okay, I can't tell my story to every single person I meet, and it's too long. I will now writing it down. They can read the book. Hopefully, somebody can get some insight into this mental illness, which is very little is known about it, I think. Um, and also maybe get help if they have a person who may be displaying the same kind of symptoms. They can know, okay, fine, we must now deal with this, because it won't get better, it will only get worse. And I think it may help somebody who's dealing with the same kind of problem with a son or a daughter with a mental illness. On top of that, I didn't just have that. I then had a husband who got dementia. So I had to look after him too. He didn't recognize me in the end. He didn't know I was his wife. He didn't know who I was.
Did you
And
add
I had,
that into the book, Marie?
yes, the story, it's all in there. It's all in the book. And I had to make this whole total mind shift, that I had to realize, look, this isn't my husband any longer. He is now my patient, and I have to deal with him as my patient. And it ended up with my husband getting the same medication that my son was taking for delusions and for hallucinations, and psychosis because of dementia. So we come a full circle with Andrew Paul with the haloperidol, and Gavin ended up with haloperidol. So that's all in the book. And I had a further journey because he got sick, he got cancer. In the meantime, my sister came to live with us, and she had a husband who had dementia. So I had three psychiatric patients in my house at once, and I still had to work and earn a living, dealing with all these three men that were just mentally ill.
So
And it was
tell
quite
you
a
have to tell us what was your, what was your formula for dealing with all of this? Because one, you had the situation with your husband and your son, plus dementia, plus cancer. That's a whole lot of stuff to deal with at one time. How did you cope?
again, I don't know. I never had to sit. I never sat down and thought, well, I can't do this any longer. I never felt like that. I never
It was
once
not
said
an
no.
option. Yeah.
It wasn't an option. You don't do that. You just get up and do it. I cried a lot. I cried an incredible amount, buckets full. But then that made me feel better. And once I cried, I would be fine, and I would get up and do it and just carry on. There was never an option of saying no, I can't do this, and walk away from it. No, I wasn't brought up to that, up like that. You stand by your man, you stand by your family. That's the way I was brought up, and I just dealt with it every day. I think I have quite a sunny nature, so I used to laugh at a lot of the things that would happen around the house. Um, yes, I think that's why coping mechanism laughing.
It is. It is. Either laughing or just allowing yourself to have a good old cry and then put on your
Yes,
big old panties and carry on, right? Um, so that's the best way of doing it. And now with COVID, why I thought your book is so apt right now is with COVID-19, a lot of people have been thrown many curveballs, many of them unintended consequences of this virus, and people are struggling to cope. People are struggling with grief. People are struggling with the loss of business. People are struggling with the loss of freedom. There's so many issues that people are having to deal with. And I think your book is an excellent example of someone who's been thrown not one, not two, not three, but many curveballs um, throughout your lifetime. And you have found a way to very eloquently deal with those one at a time. And, having the spirit of never giving up, just sort of feeling that giving up is not an option. And I think a lot of people we can all learn a lot of lessons from your book. And so I'd like to encourage people to go out and buy the book. Have you got a copy of the book there with you?
I have, Brigetti. It looks a bit different than the cover you showed. We played around with the cover because the cover you see here is a picture of a tree that my son Andrew Paul. I'm going to show you the picture in the book
Right.
uh, on page 71, I think it is. Sorry, he drew this when he was 6 years old in
Wow.
grade,
When he was just 6. That's amazing.
and it's a big picture. It's about half of a no, it's on an A3, and it's on an A3 paper, so it's quite a
Yeah.
large picture. But
Yeah.
I have a nephew who is an artist, a really formidable artist, and he said this picture is just so beautiful because it's so simple and it's so innocent, and he said you can never draw like that as an adult. He said you can never get the innocence back, and we
It's a
thought this was,
gorgeous picture.
hey, isn't it? And so we thought we'd use it on the front cover, and that's why the cover is different than the one you saw. um yeah, we wanted to bring that in. I should have said more about Andrew Paul and his autistic nature. He's very autistic. My mother-in-law is an artist. My nephew is a very good artist. My sister's the artist. So my sons are also very autistic. But Andrew Paul, because of his condition, he has no motivation to paint or to draw anymore. So I can't get him to draw and make pretty pictures anymore, unfortunately.
That's the one thing that people often miss about those who are differently abled. It doesn't mean because people have some sort of a disability, whether it's seen or unseen, that they can't do stuff. They do stuff differently, and whatever it is they do differently, they do it very, very well. Um, and so, I mean, just the fact that your son is so amazingly artistic is wonderful, wonderful. And I'm glad that you were able to incorporate some of his artwork in your book. I think that's a lovely tribute to who he is as a person.
Yes, thank you, Brigitte. I felt I wanted to show something about him. I didn't put any photographs in the book. I didn't think that was necessary. But Andrew Paul is, yes, he's a gentle soul. Actually, he's very sensitive, and he's autistic, and he just has this horrible disease that he can't be what he needs to be. And that, I think, was the greatest tragedy for me over the years, and it makes me emotional every time I think about it, is that he can't be normal like us and have a career and a wife and a family. You know, he's told me often, Mom, I'm lonely. What do I do? One day I said to him, but go out and find yourself a girlfriend. And he said to me, I don't have a job. I don't have a car. I don't have money. How can I have a girlfriend? You know what I mean? And it's so sad. And it's so
But
true.
but Anna Marie, if you take a step back and you listen to his words, it means he has given a lot of thought to that. He realizes that to have a girlfriend is a responsibility, that he needs money. And I think as a mom, that should make you proud.
Oh,
The
yes,
fact
I'm
that he's
incredibly
actually
proud of him. Yeah.
that he's a deep thinker.
No, he certainly realizes that. He thinks about that often. And in the past, he had girlfriends and everything, but because of the illness, it just doesn't last because they don't have the kind of need for relationships like we have. I don't know how to explain it. A schizophrenic is not antisocial. They're not awkward around people. They like people. They can talk to people, but they are
They love
asocial.
people often. Yeah.
Yes, they are asocial. You are there as a means to an end. So, in other words, he knows I'm his provider for whatever he needs, cigarettes, pocket money, whatever clothes, whenever he needs it, he can just give me a call. But relationships in that sense is not really so important for them. He's had friends. I mean, and he lives in a home, and there are other people there who are like him because they're a home full of schizophrenics and people who are bipolar. But he'll tell me, okay, Mom, I've got a girlfriend. And I said, well, that's fantastic. And then he would go for a few weeks, and I said to him, well, how's your girlfriend? And he'll say, no, she's not my girlfriend anymore. That relationship wasn't going anywhere, which is quite funny. It's so true. But he realizes that, but yet it doesn't really matter to him then. He thinks, oh, well, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. It
Yeah.
didn't happen. So it's fine. But also, of course, the medication he takes keeps him on an even keel. And I think a lot of the medication is to suppress sexuality. I think so. It must do. Because otherwise they'll be all running around like rabbits in that place, I promise you. And they don't. They don't. They're all calm and of course sedated most of the time, but they look normal, but they don't have physical relationships in that home. And I don't think it's because somebody tells them don't, then they mustn't. I don't think the medication allows for it. It suppresses it, which is a good thing
Yeah.
in one sense.
Anna Marie, can you let us know where people can find your book? How can they buy a copy of your book? Do you want to hold it up and then just let people know where they can buy one?
It is still at the printer as we speak. This is my dummy, my proof, but I have loaded it on Amazon. It's on Kindle Books. You can order a copy there. And once I've done the printing, I will let my publicist will put it into bookshops, and otherwise they can actually just contact me personally, and I can send them a copy as well.
Awesome. Anna Marie, thank you so much. Congratulations on getting your book out. and hopefully the hard copies will be available soon. Thank you so much
Yes.
for sharing your journey and sharing your story with us. Really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Thank you, Bridget. It was fantastic. I was quite nervous at the beginning, but yes, it was great, and I really appreciate that. And wonderful. Thank you again.
A big pleasure. Thank you to all our viewers who watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Periscope, on Twitter, and also on Twitch. We really appreciate you sharing this. Have a great day, everyone, and don't forget to write good stuff. We'll see you back again next week, same time, same place. So, from me in Cape Town, in South Africa, it's goodbye for now and stay well.